Carol said, we do record our meetings, and we do post them on our Facebook page and our various social media pages. So we always hope that everyone is very polite and shows what great people our Revolution East Bay members are. Our Revolution last November endorsed and helped elect a lot of candidates that we thought had progressive values, that had worked for some of the issues that we care about, that had basically said that they would not take corporate money, that they were grassroots. And a lot of times, like any other organization, you hope that the people that you elected and that you work for actually follow through and work for those causes and make a difference in their elected offices. Well, we are so delighted today to have two, probably more, but at least two representatives who we helped endorse and elect, who actually have just hit the ground running in Sacramento and are working very hard for working people, are getting money out of politics, are just introduced all kinds of bills. And I don't want to take any more time talking about them, but
I believe Aisha is here.
Okay, so our two, it's a State Senator Aisha Wahab and Assembly Member Alex Lee. And what we might want to do is basically have each of you speak for a few minutes on the bills and some of the issues that you're working on right now, and then kind of have a panel of you two with our members on asking questions and answers, because we know that your time is very valuable and we want to get you to your next event after 4:30. So Richard, would you like to introduce Alex Lee?
I think Richard is going to introduce Aisha.
Aisha.
Cool. Okay. And it looks like the senator is here. So good to see you, Senator Wahab. But you will be our first guest. Welcome. For folks who may not be familiar, Senator Aisha Wahab is our state senator for the 10th Senate District, and she's just an amazing community leader. She was first elected to the Hayward City Council in 2018 and was the first Afghan-American woman to be elected to public office in the entirety of the country. So that was very exciting. And as folks know, last year she ran a really tough fight for the state Senate. She won her race, and we're really glad that she did, because she's a true worker for the people. She is a friend of our revolution. We love her. She's not afraid to speak her mind. She's not afraid to fight for what's right. And she's somebody who I think we can really count on to be an advocate for us in the state legislature. She's only been sworn in for a few months now, but is already hard at work, hitting the ground running. She's written over 20 bills already in the last couple of months, which is just super impressive. And we're glad that she is here today to talk a little bit more about her work. Aisha, go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you guys. I'm a big fan of Our Revolution, the work that you guys do, especially the fact that you guys go beyond your local area. I know when you guys reach out and do some effort on our area, I really do appreciate it, because we do need the help. So my name is Aisha Wahab, recently elected and sworn in state senator for District 10, which is from Hayward down to San Jose. And I will say that I'm still trying to wrap my head around what I'm kind of allowed to do, the process, the people. I always tell people, I'm a freshman senator, so definitely take a look at it as when you entered high school for the first time and you're still trying to figure out who are all the people that you're supposed to be, knowing their names and so forth. So definitely a learning lesson, if you will. But, people actually, and I do want to say that legislative cycles go in 2-year spans, right? And we are in the first year of the 2 years. And they often tell us not to introduce that many bills, especially as a freshman. You're allowed roughly about 20 bills per year. And I've already introduced roughly 20. It may be whittled down and maybe, you know, a little bit more than that, but roughly about 20. And I also sit on 8 different committees, including the chair of public safety, which is a big committee. It's very, you know, important for me. You know, I'm trying my best to ensure that, you know, I don't harm a person's life one way or another. You know, people's lives are really, really at stake there. And we had this past Monday, we had an informational hearing regarding fentanyl and opioid usage. You know, utilizing it with, it was a joint informational hearing with health. So the health committee, and we learned a lot from the, not only the colleagues, but then also subject matter experts and so much more. So I'm very much excited to do the work. I wake up every morning excited to go to work and really actually make a difference, hopefully. I do have a number of bills that I'm very excited about. In particular, I think that we often talk about ensuring that people are getting paid fairly and doing, you know, the work that rebuilds this country and so forth. And so I have been the one that introduced a statewide PLA. This is to ensure that, you know, the projects that really are for the state, whether it's, you know, new buildings or whatever the case may be, developed by people who are paid fairly and equitably. And, you know, when we talk about American made, it's made by Americans as well. So very excited about that. And what's funny about that is I actually pitched the idea to labor. So that's a little bit different than what most people think. So, and they've been on board, and we're deeply, deeply excited to kind of keep this moving forward, as well as a number of other bills regarding discrimination, regarding social justice issues, regarding housing, multiple different housing issues. In particular, if you guys all know, on the state ballot, we tend to have a Costa-Hawkins ballot measure every election cycle, I want to say, almost every election cycle. I have a bill that is to reform Costa-Hawkins that in a way that is equitable to all people. It is not to gut it completely, but it is to reform it. I am the only renter in the state Senate, and I'm hoping that I can make a difference and raise people's voices there, because to me, it is not just about building our way out of the housing crisis. It is about an affordability crisis that we have to address. So that is my number one concern, and I will continue to keep pushing that. So I'm happy to be here and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Senator. And our next guest is Assembly Member Alex Lee. I met Alex when he was speaking at a rally for Medicare for All. And as you know, that's something that's near and dear to my heart and a lot of your hearts. I was just amazed at how passionate and articulate such a young man, I can say that because I'm an old person, was about the issues. And he has continued to just fight for all of the issues. He actually represents both Alameda County, which is part of our East Bay, and Santa Clara County. And he was an endorsed candidate for his second term. And I would like him to kind of update our members on what he's been doing in Sacramento. Alex?
Well, absolutely. Thank you, Sherry, so much. And I thank you, Our Revolution East Bay, for your incredible support for my re-election campaign. In a nutshell, we were again outspent, especially by the corporate real estate industry, where they dumped $1 million in 1 month against me. And I still have not to this day spent that much money on my own election. But we triumphed in the end. And I was very proud to, of course, run my second campaign corporate free. Still to this day, I'm still one of the few legislators in the entire state legislature that does not take a single ounce of corporate money. And it is important we continue to do that and support people that do the hard work of being corporate free. You know, it does not come easy, it does not come cheaply, but it puts in more work. And I think it really makes our democracy stronger. And I'm really happy to report that. So in my third year now in office, we are still fighting for some of the same top priorities. That's the housing crisis, the housing affordability, healthcare for all, and also getting corporate money out of politics. Just a quick update too is that I have been appointed to be the chair of the Environmental Safety and Toxic Materials Committee, which in short, basically I hold polluters accountable. So the plastic industry, anything that creates emissions or physical even pollutants really have to deal with me now. So we're going to do a lot of things in the realm of like microparticles, microplastics, as well as chemicals and products. There's a lot of interest this year to follow our European counterparts to actually modernize our standards and to hold products to a higher safety standard, which is going to be really incredible. And obviously have ripple effects on the fossil fuel industry and a lot of other industries that are very heavy polluters, frankly. And I also remain on the budget committee, which is important right now to balance our budget. You probably have heard right now that we are in a budget crisis, which is true. And I'm working very hard with my colleagues in the Progressive Caucus to make sure we do not ever enter austerity like we did in 2011, where we lost so much money, but our public sector was hit so hard. We don't ever want to return to that. In addition, I have been elected to be the vice chair of our Legislative Progressive Caucus, which is now 30 assembly members and growing. And I'm happy to say that next year I'll become the chair of the Progressive Caucus too. So we will have a lot of work to do together. I'm also still the chair of our select committee on social housing, which we have brought our bill back again this year to create a public developer to build out and acquire social housing that's affordable for all folks in California. An exciting thing is that actually in Seattle, they just passed by ballot in February, the first time ever in this nation's history, a social housing developer initiative. And that actually passed overwhelmingly, even though they had a lot of opposition from, very well-entrenched forces, well-established forces. And they're actually, because I know some of the organizers, they were inspired by our first bill last time, which we actually got all the way to the Senate. So I'm really happy to be reintroducing this bill, working with a huge coalition on social housing. And I think we're going to be able to do that and really accomplish it this year and hopefully get it onto the governor's desk, which obviously would love your support on. And another thing, of course, we brought back is our wealth tax, our tax on billionaires and mega millionaires. Just 1% on their assets would generate $22 billion. And this year, more excitingly, we have a coalition of 8 states from the West Coast and the East Coast and some in the middle, where we are going to try to tax some billionaires. Washington right now is ahead of us in this race. Unfortunately, they already got it out of their House of Origin deadline, the first house, so they're already moving the bill quite quickly. And a fun fact is that the state of Washington, even though it is much, much smaller in population than us, they almost have the same amount of billionaires as us too. They have a lot of people, converge around the Puget Sound of a lot of rich people. So we're going to be saying, we're going to be we're demanding that those who do not pay their fair share pay and reinvest back in the state. That one's going to be a heavy lift. Our governor has already come out against it again. So it's going to be another big lift. And I'm sure, I see Ryan on here, you might have some updates about it too later, is that there are going to be movement about healthcare for all bills as well. There are a couple measures out there exploring different pathways. Of course, we still need to get the federal waiver, and I do believe we should try to get it. As long as we have a Democrat in the White House is our best shot still, we should still try to get that. But there are a lot of conversations moving forward, and we're hoping that together as a progressive caucus, which is half the Assembly Democrats, we can move a sizable bill once again. Assemblymember Kalra, again, does have a CalCare bill this time, and he's working on it, and hopefully we'll advance it forward as well. So those are the 3 kind of pillars we're working on right now to make sure we have housing for all. I have a bunch of other little housing bills out there too, but social housing being the top one, and then making sure our budget remains balanced for the people. And just a quick aside about this, because I work on the budget so much, is that the hard times are predicted right now to last maybe a couple years, but our highest priority is to never go back to the austerity. We're cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting. What we're going to look at first, honestly, is who is getting a bunch of tax breaks and tax credits? What are the very unnecessary pet projects that are out there? Those are the first things we're going to look at before we go and say this, folks can't have healthcare for undocumented residents, or we have to neglect our schools or neglect these things. We're going to look at those things first before we ever have to get there. But luckily, we have a huge rainy day fund right now, which we are still healthily maintaining. So that's kind of my quick updates about everything. And I have all my bills on my website. We have about 20 something ish bills. And I think, a lot of them are really great ones.
Sherry, we can't hear you.
Muted myself. I muted myself. Oh dear. Thank you so much, Assembly Member. I think right now we'd like to sort of throw it open to questions. Again, please raise your hand and please make them brief because these two wonderful people need to get back to work and work for us in Sacramento. So their time is very, very valuable. So do we have some questions? People raise their hand. I see Richard.
Maybe I'll throw it to Pamela first. I think Pamela had her hand before me.
Okay. Pamela Drake.
Everything moved around on my phone. So I started attending the Oakland School Board meetings again, or listening to the Zoom, and they said that they had expected a good cost of living increase, and now they're being told that's being downgraded significantly. I mean, 2% is significant. And so here we are. We spent extra money to educate the kids when they weren't in the schools. And now that they're back in the schools, once again, we're facing cuts. It's heartbreaking. Is there ever going to be a time in California where education really does matter more than anything? I mean, as much as anything else, how can we get out of this constant cycle?
Yeah, Pam, that's an excellent point. So being on budget, we really prioritize getting a cost of living adjustment to educators a second time in a row. The caveat is it is still not super high with inflation, right? It's far less than people deserve, but it should be about 8%. I don't know in Oakland's case, though, because I have heard of rogue school districts where the money we have set aside planning for COLA increases, there are school districts that are going renegade and they're not translating it back. So I don't know if that's the case with Oakland. I'm not familiar with what's happening there.
Well, they told us that it was going to be 8 something and now it's going to be 6 something. That they are being told that's the projection. Okay, well that's
still should be 8. Well,
still not enough, but okay.
Which is, look, to be fair, still not enough, right? 8% is still way too low, but yeah.
Aisha, would you like to comment on that also?
Yes, please. So we have a bill by Senator Portantino that is trying to allocate more money regarding the formula that is utilized, specifically when kids are not in school. I think that's a bill, and I apologize, I'm not going to remember the number, but that is a bill that I think that everyone should be looking at, because that formula that, allows for the schools to absorb money even if the kid is absent or not in class is something that needs to be adjusted. There's a couple of other bills that has been discussed. I don't believe that they've been introduced just yet, but please take a look at Senator Portantino's bill regarding the formula in particular. So that is something that hopefully will help as well if passed.
Okay, thank you.
Richard, I think, were you next?
Sure. Thanks, Sherry. And thank you, Alex and Aisha, both for being here. I have a question for either of you or both of you. You both have put forward social housing bills this year. Assemblymember, I know this bill is one that you brought back from last year, but I'm wondering what some of the similarities and or differences are between your two bills in regards for social housing.
I don't know if Senator Wahab wants to go first.
Did.
No, I guess not. So our bill is the reintroduction from last year 2053, which is the public developer bill. We are going to be spearheading that one once again. And from my understanding of the bill, Senator Wahab is carrying more of a study bill and different aspects of social housing, perhaps. So what we're trying to do, and we're actually having some companion bills with other members, which I can't say yet because they haven't been finalized yet, but we do have funding streams and stuff that might be attached as well too. So it'd be cool. But yeah, the primary focus of ours is to create the public developer.
Yes, and as far as my bill in particular, it is focused primarily on extremely low income / low income housing. It is a stepping stone in the right direction as to having HCD develop a plan to build roughly 1.2 million units within 5 to 10 years. Specifically, my concern has always been the affordability crisis, not necessarily let's build, number one. Number two is the fact that with the, I hate to call it like this, but the silver tsunami that is projected to be happening, people on fixed incomes, retirement, Social Security, disability, whatever the case is, we just talked about COLA increases. Nobody's going to get a 5% increase anymore. Nobody's going to get a 4% increase anymore, let alone a 10%. So for me, I'm very focused on the affordability of units as we speak, plus the fact that our homeless population is growing and our senior homeless population is projected within the next 10 years to triple. That is our family. That is our parents, our grandparents, and whatever the case may be. So I'm very concerned about that. I'm not interested in talking about developers. I'm not interested in talking about market rate. I'm not interested about any of this because they've already had their piece of the pie. The piece of the pie that we need to be focusing on is affordable housing, specifically for low income, extremely low income. If you guys see the RENA numbers from every single city, they never meet the RENA numbers for the lower tiered housing. So I am not interested in that, and I will not be interested in that, specifically as the only renter who is taking care of my family. That is my priority, and that's what our bill is going to be focused on.
Thank you.
And
Thank
it is
you.
included within 555 that they're studying the feasibility of the social housing developer, which we propose. And without a social public developer, you will never be able to do 1.5 million affordable units. So that's why we're creating a public developer in the sense they can own and acquire and follow the European and Asian models to do so.
Thank you. Carolyn, I think you were next.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Assemblymember Lee, and Senator Wahab. So happy that you are in our legislature. Thank you so much for all that you're doing. And I posted in the chat. I just wanted to, there is another healthcare bill out there. It's about getting the waiver. It's about fulfilling the Healthy California for All commission that was commissioned by the governor and Anthony Rendon, and we'll have support from the governor. There is a bill. Senator Wiener has put it forward. More, there'll be more about it probably this week, but I hope folks can support that bill as well, because that will get us to the waivers, and then we can formulate the actual meat on the bones after we've got the waivers from a Democratic administration, which we have limited amount of time to make sure that President Biden signs off on giving California the necessary waivers. So I put it in there, and Alex said, yes, he pointed up that it is there. So thank you for acknowledging that. Appreciate it.
Okay. And Carolyn, later in this call, we're going to have Ryan and you and some people talk about what's happening with Medicare for All. So Alfred, did you have a question for our guests?
Sure. Thank you. And my question is, knowing how big of a fiscal crisis a lot of our transit agencies, especially BART, are facing, just want to get any updates on how the effort to provide some extra funding for transit this year is coming along.
Yeah, there is definitely a huge fiscal cliff that our transit agencies are about to face in the next year or two or three, depending on the agency in the Bay Area, and it amounts to in the low billions. Right now, and I think I will compliment the efforts of the MTC, which is the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, the regional body. They are coming up with some good solutions right now and ideas. I'm Senator Wiener and I are really trying to push them to go faster, go faster solutions. But, we've tossed out ideas from like tapping into the highways funds or other funds that exist out there, because creating a new measure of revenue will be really hard. So just to back up real quick, is we need a lot of money to keep our regional transit agencies afloat. And if they fall off that cliff, you could see huge, basically transit ecosystem itself in the Bay Area would just collapse. And that will leave so many people, especially those who need it the most, stranded. And that would be hugely impactful. So folks in the Bay Area caucus are really trying to spearhead this. And I think MTC is doing a really smart job and also partnering with LA as well. LA will have a fiscal cliff as well, LA Metro, in the next, I think their time horizon is a little farther, but they're going to face a big fiscal cliff too. So we're trying to make this a whole statewide transportation ask. It's going to be a heavy lift given our budgetary crisis and the federal money might start drying up, but we really need to work as hard as possible to keep our agencies floating along. And I think what we're going to try to do is tap into existing funds, especially those are the highway and car kind of funds, and we're going to try to siphon a little bit of that over there. And then I think in 24 or 26, the idea is to do a Bay Area regional bond measure so that there will be ongoing money safely for dedicated Bay Area transit, but that's going to need a lot of help. And Alfred, of course, is one to know, being the know in this one, but this is going to need a big lift and really quickly to hear. Yeah, I'm quickly to too.
I'd like to add, I think that, so I sit on the transportation committee, and I will say that myself and a handful of others are actually very disappointed in a lot of the effort around transportation. We've talked about a bullet train for, I'm gonna say 2 decades, at least since I was a kid. I've heard about it. It's never happened, right? We're talking about, if you take a look at these HOV lane that get split off where you're paying for it, and that is creating a system of elitism. Let's be honest, the people that can afford the carpool lane versus the people that can't. And, I raised the question, and I still have this concern, and I've never been satisfied with the answers I've heard. In the Bay Area's 9 counties, there is over roughly 27 legitimate public transportation agencies, but technically more than 30 plus public transit agencies. They need to be consolidated. It does not make sense. And I made a comment, and some people got a little bit flustered with it, but it is the honest truth. BART doesn't go everywhere, number one, and BART is not fast. I can drive faster from Hayward down to San Jose than BART goes, and BART doesn't even go that deep into San Jose. So what are we doing, right? And everyone has a different payment system, and they're trying to consolidate. And the answer that was provided to me by some of the experts were, we can do it where it's seamless for you as a consumer, but in the back channel, we're still going to have multiple different avenues of how the funding goes and this and that. And I straight up said, there's too many chefs in the kitchen. This does not make sense. We need to consolidate local transit versus regional transit versus statewide transit. And specifically making sure that, we are talking about it in a way that has more bang for its buck, in the sense that it's faster than regular cars. It's faster and safer, right? It's cleaner. And the way that we're operating right now, it's a joke. So I'm actually one of the few people that probably don't actually like the transportation conversations, because I don't think it's going the right direction. And I'm glad more and more senators are actually thinking, yeah, we need to do something that's potentially completely changing the way that we talk about transportation. So that's my sense on that.
Great.
Thank you.
Lakian, did you have a question?
Oh, just a brief little question about Aisha mentioned one of PLA. Do you know what that means? Did I get that right?
A project labor agreement.
Oh, and could you say what that does?
So for a lot of our projects that are being developed by the state, it's very important for me to ensure that people are working that are getting paid fairly, specifically prevailing wages, healthcare, things like that. What's happening now by a lot of developers is that they're bringing in people from out of state and paying them realistically poverty wages in so many different ways. There's a mix, you'll actually read stories about from human trafficking to questionable practices to wage theft to you name it. And I do believe if a government is paying for a project, and we definitely want it to be union workers, we want it to be trained workers, we want them to be paid fairly workers. And the fact that the state of California does not have a statewide PLA is quite shocking to me. So that is my effort there.
Thank you, Senator. Because of the time constraint, we're going to take 2 more questions. And then if you have any other questions, I think the information has been put in the chat where you can reach out to our candidates directly. So first, Jack, did you have a question?
Yes.
Jack Kurzweil?
Yes, I do. Both to Senator Wahab and Assembly Member Lee. I understand, pardon me, I understand that there are plans for a statewide housing bond measure coming up for 2024. And there seems to be some kind of uncertainty as to whether there's also going to be a regional or statewide measure for transportation. I'm hoping that there's a 9-county regional measure for transportation in Northern California because of all of the things that Senator Wahab has said about the dysfunctionality of Bay Area regional transit. I also hope that it's not a bond measure, but rather derives from a graduated income tax in the affected areas. I think that it would be easier to pass an income tax surcharge, and an income tax surcharge would not be retrogressive. I realize that I'm piling things on, both having a regional bond measure and having it financed through a progressive income tax, but I just like to put that into the pot. And thank you.
Thank you. That is hopefully the goal for all taxes. Let's be honest about that. I think one of the big concerns is that with the budget outlook, you know, we're supposedly going to be entering a recession. Supposedly, we may already be in a recession. The outlook is that in 2023 for sure, 2024 for sure. And the concern is that, you know, people don't want to be taxed. Let's be honest about that, right? None of us want to be taxed. I was asked to carry a tax bill that didn't make sense to me, and I said I will not be carrying that. But to your point, I do think that when we're talking about these bond measures specifically for infrastructure, we also have to realize that there's multiple different infrastructures that are looking to seek funding. Specifically, there will be a water bond measure as well in the Bay Area, most likely, if not the entire state, for 2024. As you guys all know, besides the rain in the last couple weeks and months, we've actually been in a giant drought for so many years. The infrastructure around water has not really been updated or upgraded in over 20 years in a significant way. So the water agencies are already looking at that. To your point about transportation, that's important. But at the same time, you guys do see the tolls have increased, HOV lane. You know, when you're driving on just regular 880, 680, you're being charged already there if you're in the fast lane. There's a lot of money going there. It's not about necessarily the money sometimes for me. It's about what are you doing with the money, right? And I think that, again, with my example of too many chefs in the kitchen, there's no clear direction and there's a lot of waste. There's no vision, and time is just wasting, and therefore we're spending money stupidly. Personal opinion.
Alex, did you want to say something on that subject or no? Okay, great. Let's go to Kate, and this will be our last question. And again, before you guys take off, we are so grateful, and we hope you will come back and give us an update on how everything is going with your various bills. Kate, did you have a question?
Yes, Aisha, first of all, thank you very much for your work on the state PLA. I would like to ask each of you if you'd be willing to go further and make some revisions to SB 35 to strengthen labor standards for projects built locally. We are seeing that we're not building the housing for the people that need it, and we're not building it with people that need the jobs. So I'm interested in whether you'd be willing to look at some of these housing bills that have already passed and add more labor standards. Thank you.
Well, SB 35, you're talking about this cycle, correct?
I'm talking about any cycle in the future. What I'm interested in is having it so that people's jobs, labor standards, are not treated the same as neighbor complaints about setbacks and corbels and design. We have thrown everything into one bucket and said that labor is equal to every other complaint somebody may have, And I don't agree with that. And so we see with the 5 hearing limits that labor has no way to make a case for itself within our structure of hearings in local government. So we need to do something to create standards for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I also want to caveat the conversation that I've been having with folks when we talk about local hire and so forth. Well, let's be honest, especially in the Bay Area, you know, we have individuals that that live 3, 4, 5 cities away and are trying to commute to the jobs, right? So I think that we're going to have to talk about regional hire specifically because people cannot afford the Bay Area. You know, in my district alone, a condo goes for $1 million, right? I don't know who the hell can afford that, right? But so I think that me personally, the reason why I am introducing the PLA is because I do care about, you know, strengthening the rights of working people, making sure people are paid fairly, making sure that we are having that conversation, especially when there's government dollars attached to it. I think that there are other considerations to make when we're talking about affordable housing in particular as well, because we have to ensure that affordability is prioritized as well. So I'm in constant communication with our labor partners. I definitely want them to take a look at all of our housing bills. The bills that we do not carry, for example, if it's authored by somebody else, we can always make a suggestion, especially in committee, especially one-on-one. But at the end, it's their amendments that they'd have to accept unless it's in the committee and it gets potentially killed. So there are a lot of nuances to every bill and every discussion, but I just wanted to frame it in that way as to what my perspective is.
Yeah, I mean, we have the highest, we always try to have the highest standard for, especially when there's public dollars going towards public works or, you know, especially when there's public dollars, it's actually the strongest labor standards possible. So when we worked on the student housing bill with the higher ed sectors, we always had the strongest labor language in there. And that's going to be true in my social housing bill too, just like we had in 2053, we're going to do the same thing again. So especially when we're spending all the public taxpayer dollars in it, we always want to have the highest standard possible.
Well, thank you for that. I am interested in also making those requirements apply to the private sector as they are building most of our housing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have gone past what we were going to on this. So much thanks to both Assemblyman Lee and Senator Wahab. It was just outstanding hearing from you guys, and we do hope you come back. And I know you got to split and go do some other things, but thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. I appreciate it.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're going to move on now. We got a lot of stuff to cover. Basically, because of their schedules, usually we do kind of a little opening, so we're not doing that today. We're just going to go straight through with all the guests that we've got. I do want to welcome everyone that's here. I see a lot of ADEMS people here, and we'll have some time for all the ADEMS people to share later on. I think the next scheduled person we have is Ryan Skolnick. Sherry, do you want to introduce Ryan? I think you know him.
Well, Susanna?
Yeah,
Oh.
I was.
Okay.
Because Ryan, it's been a minute. How can I not introduce you, right? Yes, Ryan's going to give us an update on CalCare, our single payer effort, which we are going to make happen in California. I think the Medicare for All effort is the reason a lot of us got involved in this fight. So I've been in the trenches for Ryan. He's probably one of the earlier people that I met along the Bernie 2016 campaign trail. So he is with the CNA and is one of our most important go-to people. And Ryan, I have to tell you, I know why you had to back away from Facebook, but dang, I missed those policy and legislative updates. You were my go-to. So we are all excited to hear the updates that you have for us and how we can help make CalCare and single payer healthcare in California a reality. So Ryan, over to you.
Thanks so much, Susanna. That was quite the welcome. So I know for a good number of you that are on the call right now, but for those who don't, my name is Ryan Skolnick, and I am a community organizer with CNA's CalCare team. And I initially got involved in politics. I've always been kind of aware of things, but it was Bernie 2016 that turned me into an activist. And after that didn't happen, I found kind of my calling, if you will, advocating for SB 562, which was the 2017 single payer bill. And I threw myself head on because I, like so many others, have a lot of personal stake in our broken healthcare system. So it was very easy to jump headfirst into that, and we'll never stop until we win. So regarding healthcare, we all know, as members of our revolution, or people who are with our revolution, you all know what happened last session. We had Assembly Bill 1400, which was CalCare. It's a complete single payer bill, had everything minus the financing, but we had a separate measure that did have a financing proposal that was moving on a separate track in the legislature. We cleared 2 committees of jurisdiction, the Assembly Health and Appropriations Committees. We earned the support of Assembly Speaker Rendon, who, after the bill died, said he would have voted for it had it reached the floor. And if y'all, for those who remember what he did with SB 562, that's a big deal. So we won his support. We won the support of Health Chair Jim Wood, a notorious skeptic of single payer. We did a lot of great work, and unfortunately, we came up just short. The bill did not quite have the support it needed on the floor of the assembly, so the author, Ash Kalra, chose to pull it. It was not something we wanted to see, but it did underscore how much work there is to be done if we really want to get this passed. It showed us that there's a lot of work to do, and to be frank, we believe that we can win. But it's going to take a revamped campaign that combines the fierce dedication of single-payer activists with a level of strategic planning and movement that it's going to take to get something like this done. So we just released, and I'm going to put a link in the chat to a Medium post from the team that kind of goes over our plan to win. And I'm going to go over that plan right now, but that's just to follow along. So first, the first big difference between last session and what's happening now is that CalCare was introduced as a spot bill or an intent of the legislature bill, just like SB 562 was initially. That means that instead of having the full substance of the bill, it just says it's the intent of the legislature to do single payer. And there are 3 different reasons that I can point to as to why this is the more strategic way to begin the campaign. The first one is that it gives us time to engage with legislators on the specific language of the bill. We anticipate that CalCare is going to look very similar to AB 1400. And while there are certain core principles of CalCare that we're never going to compromise on, we're not going to let the insurance companies continue to administer the system, for example, because that's not single payer. There are things regarding governance structure, regarding financing, things that can be adjusted to address legislator concerns without compromising on what single payer is. It gives us time to have those conversations. And we've already had several good conversations. We've done an early round of ledge visits in the lead up to CalCare being introduced. And we had a lot of really productive conversations with a lot of legislators, including a few who didn't support CalCare last time. So we feel like we've made a lot of headroom there. 2 is that this gives us some time to work out of some political realities we're in. Our legislators mentioned the economic downturn we're facing right now. When you combine giving this a full year of discussion with the amount of time it takes to implement single payer, this gives us time to kind of allow this economic storm to roll by and also to find a sustainable way to fund this. And there are several ways. It's just actually not find a way, just pick a way, because we know there are a ton of different ways to finance a single payer system. We put a few of them into an ACA 11 last cycle, but there are a lot more than that. So this gives us time to pick the most sustainable way that is most politically palatable to the legislature. And then finally, it gives us time to execute a plan and grow the movement. And that's kind of what I want to talk about really quickly. The 5 campaign tactics that we are implementing already and that we're going to be implementing as the cycle goes on in the lead up to 2024, when there will be a full reintroduction of CalCare. Note that as of right now, the plan is for that to be a separate bill. It will not be AB 1690, which is the spot bill. And the reason for that is that puts us on a more generous legislative timeline. If AB 1690 were amended into the full single payer bill, it would have to clear the assembly by the end of January of next year. Introducing a new bill gives us till the end of May. So that's a much more forgiving timeline to get this bill through. So that is the current plan. And as for the campaign tactics, here are the 5, and I want to go over them very briefly. The first is a return to door-to-door canvassing, which we're very excited for because we didn't do that last time. So we're excited to kick off a sustained series of canvassing, just like we did with SB 562, with a weekend of action at the end of March, where there are going to be canvases hosted across the state, both door and crowd canvases, where people are going to go and talk about CalCare and win the support that it's going to need and have those conversations. So the roster of events is already finalized, but for those who are interested in canvassing on that last weekend of March, I'm going to put a link in the chat to our event map that you'll be able to use to find a canvas near you to take part in that weekend of action. We're very excited for it, and it's going to take that kind of work. We missed that last cycle. We did that a lot during 562, and we're excited to be going back to it. Second is we're going to continue to maintain and expand our district leaders plan. So our district leaders, to just for those who haven't been attending our calls, is they are people that CNA organizers are working with directly to build support in communities. They hosted a series of legislative visits with a bunch of people in both the state Senate and Assembly. They're working to build coalitions within the district and build the support it's going to take. They work with us a little more closely. So we are expanding that effort. I am going to also put a link in the chat in a quick sec for people to sign up if they're interested in possibly joining the district leaders effort in their district. And if we already have them, we can connect you, and these are people that kind of get routine updates for us. So if you're going to sign up for this, you'll be invited to routine district leader calls and direct contact with a CNA organizer that will help you with your work. Next, we are going to be working on broadening and deepening our coalition. So we need to continue to build support and bring organizations and people that haven't been involved in the fight for healthcare justice in. We're going to be launching what we're calling a CalCare organizing table, where those both in the single payer movement and other organizations that do other work and have a lot to contribute but haven't been, we're going to be inviting a lot of these groups to a table where we're all going to work together to organize in our communities for single payer. So we have an organizational endorsement form. I don't know if our Rev East Bay has filled it out. We know you support single payers, so we're not concerned. But if you're interested in signing our org endorsement form, I'm going to post that as well for y'all to possibly vote on if it hasn't been done yet. And we'll be able to keep you in the loop, and hopefully, and we'll see where things go from there. But we're very excited to be expanding this into other groups and orgs that haven't been traditionally involved. So that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a very broad movement beyond just the healthcare justice crowd in order to win. And on that note, this is one that I'm personally deeply involved with, and I'm extremely excited for it because it's so important, is concentrated support to labor. A good amount of organized labor in California has supported single payer, but support and doing things to get it done are very different. And we want to bring labor more broadly into the movement, and not just labor like CNA and all these other groups that already in United Care Local 11 that already support single payer. We're talking the trades. We're talking unions that traditionally have been skeptical of single payer. And that's going to require direct outreach. So we have already reached out to all CLCs in the state that are listed at the Cal Labor Fed website, and we're scheduling presentations to them. I'm excited to be presenting to Contra Costa in the next few weeks. So if any of you attend those meetings, you'll see me there. We have a dedicated labor presentation for that. And we're also going to be reaching out to individual unions that want a longer, more thorough presentation, because it's going to take that kind of engagement. And then the reality is that labor isn't a monolith in terms of their concern for single payer, because they all represent different workers with different concerns. You have some labor that have more Taft-Hartley plans and they wonder what's going to happen. You have teachers who are concerned about what new revenues might mean for revenue for education. So these are conversations that need to be had on a specific level with different unions. So if any of you are members of a local or a union that want a specific presentation on CalCare, please email us at our email address, which I'll put in the chat right now, and we'd be happy to schedule something with you all, because nothing big happens in California without labor buy-in, and it shouldn't. We need the working class united behind this effort, and we're going to do the work to make sure that happens. I know I'm taking a while, just 2 more quick things. One is public education. So it's more for CalCare than just to make it to where our activists are inoculated against insurance and drug company misinformation. But it's going to take reaching out to the broader public and decision makers and inoculating them. AB 1400 only gave us a taste of the misleading ads and attacks that are going to come from for-profit healthcare as they see this start to move forward. And it's not just for passing CalCare, it's for defending CalCare. You know they will referendize any single payer bill that we pass and try and have the voters overturn it. And then if that fails, they'll do a ballot initiative. They will stop at nothing to maintain their profits. And to defeat that, the public needs to be educated about what single payer is and isn't. So we're looking forward to working really hard on that. Series of public inoculation live streams and all sorts of things that we're going to be doing. So stay tuned. We'll be putting more info out as those efforts develop. And then finally, I already hinted at this, but organizing inside the legislature. So earlier we had Alex, Lee, and Aisha Wahab, 2 of our CalCare champions from the last election that were here, and we're happy they were able to join. We're going to need to reach beyond. We've already been having a lot of conversations with legislators, including some who are skeptical of single payer, and they've been good conversations. We genuinely believe that the numbers of people in the legislature to pass this are there. We just need to engage them, address their concerns, let them come in with their input, their experiences. We have a lot of great people in our legislature that want to chime into this. So we're going to be doing that work as well. Our GR team is working hard on that, and they're going to work hand in hand with us to make sure that legislators are brought into this process in a real way. So those are the tactics that we are going to be starting. We've already started as we move forward. I'm happy to answer questions about them, but let me just finish with this. Single payer is not some theoretical. We've had a commission that said that it's the most affordable and equitable way of doing this. That was commissioned by our state. We have had countless financing studies. We have the policy seriousness here. The legislators last time did not, for those who were involved with 562, the common attack from the insurance and drug companies was, this isn't a real bill. This isn't a real plan. This is lightweight on policy. So they accused us of not being serious. That is not their charge anymore. If you listen to the opposition, their attacks on us they took our policy very seriously last time because of the fact that all of this info has come out. We've done that work. Legislators understand that single payer is the way forward. It's no longer a matter of convincing them it's the right policy. The question now is convincing them to do the right thing. We're going to continue to organize every day and every night until we pass guaranteed healthcare for all in California. And we're really excited to work with you and everyone else across the state to make that happen.
Okay, I have kind of more of a comment than a question. I was thinking that maybe our Revolution East Bay on both Saturday and Sunday of the weekend could come out and do a couple different markets. A lot of us like to go out and do markets, and we really reach a lot of people. So I'm kind of speaking on behalf of everybody, saying that we will commit to doing that, and then we'll talk about it later. Anyway, so thank you. I think we can get 2 or 3 or 4 markets covered on that weekend. Okay, Sherry, you have your hand up. Unmute. Unmute.
We have on this call somebody that I know I have worked tirelessly with. She and I met a lot of you people, in fact, at the call center for Bernie Sanders at the nurses building. We did a lot of phone banking for Bernie, and that's how I met Carolyn. And we have worked together for forever. So Carolyn, would you like to have a few minutes to say, what you think we should go forward with Healthy California?
Well, hi, everybody. Thanks, Sherry. And I'll be super, super brief because I'm not scheduled, but yeah, and Sherry and many of you I've worked with for a long, long time, and on 562 as well. Last year I retired and took a step back, but now I'm working with Healthy California now, and we also have a bill, and actually our bill and the CalCare bill could eventually be compatible if all parties agree. The Healthy California Begins Now bill is mostly about the financing. It's about making sure that we have unified public financing. It's about making sure that the state of California approaches the CMS, because we'll need Medicare, Medicaid, and ACA funding in order to make sure that we can finance as part of the big financing plan for guaranteed healthcare in California. So the Healthy California for All Begins Now Act, this bill establishes a sequential process of engagement based upon the findings and recommendations of the Healthy California for All Commission, which Ryan referred to, which was totally supported by the governor, totally supported by Speaker Rendon, and many in the legislature and the Senate. So the process is laid out. So we just have to codify it into law, which is what our bill will do, right? What this bill will do. And there's a support for the California Health and Human Services. And so we want to discuss with them how we can approach the Federal Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services to get that funding. And now's the time to do it, because if we delay, there is a chance, I hate to say it, but there is a chance that we wouldn't have a Democratic president in 2024, right? And so we need to do it while we still have Joe Biden in office, and he can direct the Health and Human Services to give California the necessary waivers in order to do a huge part of the financing for guaranteed universal health care. So watch out for that bill as well. And hopefully down the road, these two bills will converge. Ours is starting on the Senate side, and 1690, I know, is starting on the Assembly side. And sometimes things come together. I don't know that that's what's going to happen. But, financing is super important. And, as you all know, the Healthy California for All Commission concluded that California will incur an additional $500 billion in inflationary medical costs over the next decade, unless we get together the unified public healthcare financing. And so we need to do that by very, very soon. So the commission's findings enjoyed broad consensus among its members and reflected a clear preference for equitable, accessible, affordable, universal healthcare that fixes the fragmented and wasteful current healthcare financing system. So I know that that's what we all want to do. We all want to get guaranteed healthcare. So let's all work together to make that happen. So thanks for letting me share a little bit about the Healthy California Begins Now bill. Appreciate it.
Okay, we have two more questions. Do you want to do this, Sherry? Unmute.
I think Susanna is kind of heading up this section.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. We have two more questions. Gordon, and then Jennifer, Gordon. So Gordon, go ahead.
Yes, there are predictable attacks that the opposition is going to launch. And one of them is they're going to tell us the aggregate cost of how much this is going to be. It's going to be X trillions of dollars. And the counter argument, if it was available, would be we're already spending more on healthcare than that now. It would be we're spending this much now
and supporting a little bit of supporting information that it's distributed throughout the economy. So I think some effort should be put into coming up with refutations of these very predictable things that are going to happen. So if we get into an argument at the table and down by the Paramount Theater with somebody saying it's going to cost $10 trillion, we'll be able to answer that argument. That's all.
If I could really, really quickly, not only do I agree with that, but I would encourage everyone to take the fight, the verbal fight, to them and not always be defensive. Because them saying, you're gonna raise taxes by 10 trillion and us saying, no, we're not, is not a winning argument. But that us saying, we're gonna cut your healthcare taxes and guarantee you healthcare because your premiums, your copays, and your deductibles are taxes that you pay to a private insurance company. And that is way less than the taxes you will be paying to the government to give you guaranteed healthcare. I feel like not only do we need to be able to refute their arguments, but we need to stop playing on their rhetorical ground. Because their rhetorical ground is them saying you're going to do all these things and us saying, no, we're not. The best we can do there is tie. We're not going to win more support by convincing people, no, we're not going to destroy the economy. We can, though, by flipping the narrative and also put them on the defensive. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, Gordon. That's a great point, and I would encourage everyone to be affirmative and talk to people in terms of not just this is what single payer won't do for you, it's what will single payer do for you.
Great, thank you, Gordon. That was a great question. Jennifer, you are up next, and followed by Annie.
Thanks so much for this presentation, Ryan. I so appreciate it. I think one of the questions I had that people presented to me a lot last year is, what's the partnership like on the creation of the new legislation? Because some of the critique about AB 1400 was that there was criticism that CNA wrote the bill single-handedly. And I know you're talking about doing presentations to labor councils and other unions specifically, but where are those people are they at the table writing and drafting now, making the changes and updates to the legislation? Because then they'll have a different kind of buy-in right from the beginning. I don't know if that happened. I'm very curious to know if that was criticism that CNA received in the past.
So that's a great question, and I'm gonna preface my answer by saying that I am not a member of government relations. So my knowledge on the specific conversations about the drafting portion is not going to be complete because that's not my role with the team. My role is the field organizing part, but here's what I can tell you. That is absolutely, it's not a secret, that is absolutely criticism that has been heard before, that the bill was drafted behind the scenes. That's part of the reason that the bill was introduced as a spot bill. Now, the anticipation is that the bill will look substantially similar to AB 1400 because AB 1400 fulfills those core principles of CalCare: the universal coverage, the free at the point of service, complete benefits, the transition, all of that. Now, that being said, we have been speaking with some groups that have expressed certain preferences for what they would like to see in a healthcare bill. And those types of groups they're always welcome to reach out. How our GR team responds to those things, I can't say because that's not my division. I don't actually work on that part of the bill language. As much as I like policy and I'd love to do stuff like that, that is not where I am. So I'm not privy to those conversations. But what I can tell you is those have been heard by us and by our policy team. I know for sure that we're working pretty closely with legislators on that. That's one of the major reasons. There was not a small number of legislators that said that they are not closed-minded towards single payer. They think it's the best way forward. We would like more time to weigh in. And we think that the spot bill and having these continued engagements with them will help with that. So I'm sorry if that wasn't like a comprehensive answer. I gave you the best I could with the info that I have at my disposal.
Thank you, Ryan. A lot of moving parts. Annie, you are up next.
Thank you. Yes, two incredibly unrelated things. First, just wanted to like second and super support what Gordon and Brian were saying about framing. I think that framing on this is going to be very, very, very important, and especially framing in the affirmative of what CalCare and what single payer is good for, not just what it will not do, not just that it's not a giant boogeyman coming to destroy society or something. And then the second part of my comment / question is one of the favorite niche arguments that comes up about why CalCare will somehow fail is that Vermont tried it and it didn't work. What would you say in response to that? Because obviously that's not a great argument about CalCare, but people love to bring it up. So yes, what would you say concerning that?
That's a great question. And there are a few things I would say. One is that Vermont tried to do single payer before Section 1332 waivers under the Affordable Care Act were available. 1332, for those who don't know, are the consolidated waivers that allow you to apply for waivers for Medicare, Medicaid, ACA funding, all of these different programs in one application, as long as it meets certain criteria. Those were not available at the time that Vermont tried to do single payer. So they had a much more difficult and convoluted path to securing the financing that they needed. And since they couldn't guarantee all the funding that is available now, they had to make up more in taxes. And that made the program too costly, though that is not an issue we'll be facing right now. The second thing I'd say is economies of scale. One of the largest economies in the world in California, implementing single payer here is very different. I know it seems counterintuitive, but the bigger the program is, the more affordable it is. If you have me and Carolyn as the only two people paying into a healthcare system, and I break my leg and it needs a $5,000 treatment, we both have to pay $2,500 out of pocket for me to get my $5,000 treatment. You add two more people, it becomes $1,250 each. So you take that math and add everyone in the state of California. It's a lot more sustainable to do single payer with a larger population like California than it is for Vermont. So the economic realities are different and the legal realities are different now. So that's what I would say to that. It's obviously a bad faith argument, but there are very, very easy answers to it.
And if I could just add to
Ryan, that was interesting.
Gordon's question, if I could just add an answer to Gordon's question, I put in the chat how much money the state of California, it was found by this commission over 2 years of studying with lots of brilliant minds at the table, that California would save $158 billion in statewide public health care spending and would save a lot in inflationary costs. And I also put in the chat a medical cost calculator. And if you guys could save that and use it, because you could just show somebody here, tell me how much it costs. Look how much that you're going to save when we get into a single payer unified financing system, right? So there's a lot of tools that can be used to disabuse people of this whole concept that, oh, it's going to cost so much money. In actuality, it's going to save the state a lot of money. It's going to save public sector unions tons of money. It's going to save individuals tons of money. And so we have to go at it, like Ryan said, with an aggressive argument before they come to us with their argument saying, how much it's going to cost so much. No. Actually, it's going to save this much. Let me show you, right? And that's how we need to, that's the arguments we need to have is you're going to save tons of money under this system, right? Thanks.
Thanks, Carolyn. Yeah, those calculators are great. I've actually used that. I remember in the early days of talking about Medicare for All when those calculators came out. There were a lot of memes put together. Yeah, because that's kind of the argument that they use with Scandinavian countries, right? Oh, but they have higher taxes. But yeah, I don't know, free education, free healthcare, affordable housing, and guaranteed jobs. All of a sudden, that high tax rate looks really low. So anyway, yeah, thanks for bringing that up and a reminder because I kind of forgot about that calculator. I do not see any hands up.
Okay,
Thank you so much for being here, Ryan. And yes, I'll respond to Phil Kim's like text he keeps sending me. Sorry, I've had a lot on my plate lately, but I'm still in the fight. So thank you so much. And back to Carol and Sherry, whoever's doing the
okay,
next part of that.
I'll take it right now. So, while we're on healthcare and that sort of thing, I thought at this point we would slightly change the schedule, and we're gonna ask Gordon to speak about a thing that Kara is doing. And then we're gonna move on to money topics with Craig McCollum and Sherry. Okay, Gordon, do you want to speak for a minute about what's happening?
Okay, you've all heard of the great Irish immigrant hero, Congressman McCarthy, who's working representing the former president, Donald J. Trump, in the Congress. And Kara organized a rally to oppose the things he wants to do. That will harm seniors and just about everybody else too. So we're going to meet at his office in Bakersfield. We were offering free bus rides. Unfortunately, the contract had to be signed, so no more free bus seats are available. But if you know people who can make it on St. Patrick's Day, at 2 p.m. at his office in Bakersfield, you're certainly invited, and they're certainly invited to come along and express their opinion about no cuts to Social Security, Medicaid, or Medicare. His office is at 4100 Empire Drive. You know, it's like Napoleon's Empire. Suite 150. It's in a nice one of these new office park kind of things. And we will be there, and we're going to have an awful lot of people coming in by bus to express their opinions and wish their fellow Irishmen a good day on St. Patrick's Day. And with that, I guess that's it.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm also wondering, Gordon, is it possible you could check to see if there are any spaces left on any of the buses, or are they full?
Right now, the best thing to do is to say the contracts were signed. That means all space has been allocated. Anything like now, and a question like that right now is like going to Symphony Hall on the night of a big concert or a theater on the night of a big play and hoping that somebody is there who didn't, you know, they're scalping tickets kind of thing.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
But Gordon, is anybody organizing maybe carpools? You know, where people could get together if they didn't make the bus and do it that way?
I haven't heard of that. I can raise that with Kara, and maybe our revolution, you know, we have a Facebook page and people could post on that Facebook page, hey, can I join up? I'm leaving Alameda and I'd like to go to Bakersfield for this event. Does anybody want to carpool with me?
Sherry, would you be able to put something up? Okay.
Yeah.
If it's at all helpful, I put the Kara's website in the chat, and right on the first page, there's information about the buses, and there may be a way to contact them too. So I just put their link in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, you can call. Oh boy, I've conveniently forgotten Cynthia. You can call Cynthia Lopez at the headquarters and ask to be let aboard if a seat suddenly becomes available. But I think the best thing we here could do is allow people to post on our Facebook page to inquire about the availability of carpools.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you, Gordon. I know I signed up for a bus seat.
Yeah, hopefully for Mashpee.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna move on. We got several more things to cover here. I'm very thrilled to have our Revolution East Bay member, longtime member, Craig McCollum, talking today about Act 3 and the protests or rallies that are gonna go on the 21st, banks all over the United States. Craig, thank you.
Thank you. And hi, everybody. I think I'm unmuted, right? Am I unmuted?
You're
Am I
doing
okay?
fine.
Good. I usually find myself muted in these situations. Happy to have heard so much good information today. Thank you to everybody who spoke and who was coordinating this meeting. It worked out great. So this is a pivot to an environmental event that's coming up, and I hope that some of you will be aware of and others can maybe learn and participate. So Tuesday, March 21st is a day that we will be picketing at the big 4 worst banks in the world, or at least in our country. That would be Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citibank, and Chase, who are the major culprits that are funding the climate crisis. One of these organizations, Third Act, was started by Bill McKibben, who a number of years ago put forth the proposition that we're never going to convince the oil companies to stop pumping oil, but we might be able to convince some of the banks to stop funding the gigantic infrastructure that these oil companies need to continue their dirty work. And so the idea of the 21st, Tuesday the 21st, is picket lines at as many of these banks as we can get to, as we can organize people to attend. Most of these picket lines will be occurring at 10 a.m. When the banks open, usually 2 hours. There is a website that is showing the location of all the events that are taking place around the country, dozens and dozens of them around the country. I would say the Bay Area should be stepping up a little.
It is.
There should be more events in the Bay Area. I hope that map will fill out a little bit for our Bay Area folks. I would like to say that Sudhia and I have been trying to get ahead of the curve. So we've been picketing at Wells Fargo a couple of hours every Friday for several months now. We did take a break when the rains hit. So the last few weeks haven't been doing it, but going to get started again doing that, because I don't think this should be a one-day thing. I don't think it should be a one-time thing. I think we need pressure on those dirty banks forever, for the rest of the term of the climate crisis. I suppose that's forever. The idea of the 21st is not only picketing, but urging people, friends, relatives, and ourselves. Even I have a small account at Wells Fargo, and I will be vociferously closing that account on that day. And that's part of the urge of this day, is to ask people to close their accounts. Some of us might have accounts. Some of us at this meeting may have accounts in one of the big dirty 4, and this is a time to make a statement about closing that account, taking that money, going to the co-op credit union in Berkeley, or I can't remember what's the name of it. Anyway, the beneficial bank.
Pacific Telephone Employees.
Yep, that's another one. Beneficial Bank in Oakland, which was started by Tom Steyer and others, decent environmentalists. So there's lots of information on the website. I will be dropping a link to the website that shows the map of where the events are. We hope you can get to one of them. So Dee and I have been carrying this sign. Oh, I'm sorry, our camera is blurring on this. I think it wants to focus on heads. So the idea that the sign we've been carrying says, Wells Fargo profits as California burns. $223 billion investments in the fossil fuel industry since the Paris Climate Accords. Wells Fargo reaps mega profits from carbon bombs that are cooking the planet, greenwashing their image with phony pledges. Children will die due to the big banks' greed. And Wells Fargo is not our neighborhood friend. And divest today, bank at your local credit union. So that's the message. More information on the website. Please look at the chat. And I'm going to get that on there in just a few minutes. Okay. Thank you very much. March 21st, Tuesday, 10 a.m. Look on the map for your local bank, just a couple of hours of time, and hope to see you there. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have a question about this? Okay, go to mobilize.com. I know Berkeley has two, one in the morning and one in the afternoon up on Solano Avenue, but there's a lot of them around, and we do need to have more if anybody wants to actually start one in their community.
Yeah,
And
I will be hosting. I will be hosting
Central-
one at the Wells Fargo Bank in the Elmwood district, and that's where
Okay.
Sudhi and I have been picketing every Friday for a couple of months. And there will be one, I believe there will be one in downtown Berkeley as well.
If you live in central Contra Costa County, there will be one in Walnut Creek at a Bank of America outlet on Main Street.
Okay, if everybody could get me these, we'll put them in a newsletter too and try and encourage more people to come out.
One other thing to add to the Medicare for All, I got an email and it hasn't been mentioned, but it seems like Saturday, March 25th, I got a notice that there was a weekend organizing for CalCare. So I'm not sure what they're doing, but do you know about that, Ryan? The weekend organizing for CalCare?
He talked about it.
Yeah, if you're referring to the
weekend?
weekend of action, that is our canvassing kickoff. Actually, Sherry, if you check your email after this meeting, we just sent the info.
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay.
So yeah, if you all want to figure out the best way to crowd canvas for the last weekend of March, the info is there and we'll send you the materials and it'll be great.
And I think Carol is organizing probably some tabling at our farmers that weekend too, right, Carol?
Yeah, and I see a lot of you out there that are good tabling friends with OREB. So let's get together. Okay, I think we're going to move on to a kind of related topic to banking, and that's participatory budgeting. Recently, we had a guest who spoke about it, and we weren't, at least I wasn't, and I think other people weren't so aware, but it turns out there's more of that going on in the East Bay and Bay Area than we thought. Sherry, can you update us a little bit?
Well, I think actually, Carol, what we were talking about is April is when you all pay your taxes. And as much as we don't like to talk about money in our revolution because we want to get the money out of politics, it is money makes the world go round. So we thought that the program that we're going to have in April would be on participatory budgeting, which we opened the subject up last time, and we'll have some of the folks that are actually in the communities that are working on this, which there are quite a few in the Bay Area, about banks, where we are really interested in public banking and a public bank. And we'd like to get you some information on that. And then both of our legislatures talked about social housing, which is another way of distributing money that's a little bit different than what we've been doing. So I think that's kind of where we're standing. That's a preview. So this is a commercial for next month. And we always have our meetings on the first Sunday. Anything else, Carol?
Well, we had also talked about maybe having this as a town hall, but we're not positive. We're trying to figure it out, but you can count on there will be something coming up soon. And as many people as want to participate in it can. We'd love to have people. So, okay, shall we move on? Is that it?
ADEMS.
Oh, you heard Bernie yesterday. Tell us about that event.
We're going to, that's on the list here.
Okay.
We have a few more things. And also I'd like to mention again, in a little bit, we'll be talking about the ADEM elections. And I know we have several people here that got elected or were involved in, and maybe we can hear from everybody a sentence or two or whatever. Anyway, I think the next person we're going to hear from is Alfred too. It's going to talk a little bit about housing and transportation. Welcome, Alfred.
You're muted.
Sorry.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm
Hey.
Alfred.
Alfred.
Yeah, as you heard earlier in the first part, we do have a lot of exciting housing legislation coming up, not only to build social housing, but also to allow cities to expand rent control and tenant protections. So I'll definitely be tracking all the different housing bills, and at the state party through the California Renters Council, we'll be working on getting the Democratic Party to support some of these housing bills as well. And then with the transportation issue, I'm sure for those who were here earlier, you heard the Assembly member and Senator talk about the need to not only provide funding to save public transit, but to really look at making it more efficient and effective through bringing together our fragmented transit system. So right now is a great time. We've talked to at least 2 legislators, but we've got about another dozen in the Bay Area. So give them a call, leave them a message. You can call them now and leave them a message, or you can call them tomorrow and speak to their staffers. But we definitely need to make sure that they know that transit needs help in the Bay Area. And I'll put a link in the chat with some more information. Thank you.
Alfred, do you happen to, we have a couple people here who said they'd like to see your graphical list of housing related bills. Can you, is that easy to pull up?
I make one every year. Usually it comes out towards the end of March, early April, when all the details are out. So
Okay, maybe,
the one
maybe
for
we
this year is
can
not
check it
ready
out
yet.
at our next meeting if it's ready then.
Yes, it should be ready by the next one.
Oh, okay, I think we got, as near as I can tell, we have 2 more things. One is the ADEMS, and then hearing about some solar updates from Igor. And then if there's anybody else here that wants to say anything, we have time to do that. So first, I think we'll start with ADEMS. They are finally, the elections are finally over and announced. And a number of us that are on here, we're in District 14, led by Alfred, and we got elected. Everybody, all 14 of us, it was just a total sweep. In 15, of which we have people in here today, who either worked on it or were elected or both. That was a total sweep, 14 out of 14. 16 didn't do so well, but some of the people that were running in 16, the Contra Costa Democratic Party voted them in as delegates, so they're covered. 18, I think they ran 12 people, including Nelson, who's here today. And did you guys all get elected? I know it was pretty close.
Yes, we swept it. All
Yeah.
12 of us were elected. 2 on the other side from Bonta slate was Zach Bowling and Victor Flores.
Yeah, okay. I see Jennifer's not here now. Jennifer Easton was in 20, and 12 of their 14 got elected. 24, which we also supported, didn't do so well, although some people got elected. And what we did, we all worked together, all 6 groups, in different ways of trying to help it so we could all get elected and make a difference. And we did well. Anyway, I'd like to hear from other people about it, because there were a lot of problems too. Anybody want to talk about some of the problems that are still ongoing? Raise your hand.
Sure, I
Suzanne,
will. Yeah, this was probably the biggest. I've been an ADEM delegate for 3 terms now, so 6 years. And this was probably the biggest mess ever. There were so many things wrong with this. There was a very non-transparent website that popped up out of the blue that was promoting a lot of establishment candidates, ignoring a lot of persons of color who were running, just huge problems. So a complaint has been filed. I'm not sure if it's a lawsuit status yet. I've been a little out of the loop on it, but I have definitely signed on to this complaint. But a complaint's been filed with the state party about how this entire process happened, because there was just so many irregularities. Personally, AD 15's election got canceled, but no one told the slate that ended up prevailing in AD 15 or any of us who were, showing up to support them. And, just all kinds of random things like that. So the ADEMs are supposed to be grassroots. That's the whole entire point of it. Elected officials, they all get to appoint people. We've got central committees, which historically have been more on the establishment conservative side of the spectrum, although that is changing. So the grassroots were supposed to come from the ADEMs, and that is just not happening anymore. Elected officials are running slates, votes are getting bought, people are being transported in to vote on buses and wined and dined, literally. And that needs to change. So I'm hoping that Progressive Caucus, Umber Shergill, and that crew can actually make a difference. I'm definitely on board supporting them, as I think a lot of you all are. I personally didn't run for ADEMs this year because right when it was kicking off, I had my husband got diagnosed with something pretty serious. And so I was spending a lot of time in the emergency room at the hospital. So I kind of bowed out, and I ended up fortunately being elected as a delegate through the Central Committee, and things on the family front have calmed down, and I'm on the executive board. Gordon was also elected through our Central Committee. Marisol Rubio was, and Jem and Purcell. There's a bunch of us, and out of the 4 e-board positions that Contra Costa Central Committee had, 2 of us were on the progressive side. I was elected as an e-board rep, and Marisol Rubio was as well. Michael Nye, who sometimes can run progressive, but he's very much more labor focused, was also elected. And then Jonathan Bash was the 4th person. But I've seen a lot of progressive change there. So I'm hoping that happened across the state, where we got more people also that didn't make it for ADEMs, that we got them in on the Central Committee side. So that's my 2 cents. I'm sure some of you guys are probably a little bit more up to date on this, because I kind of haven't been paying attention for the last couple of weeks.
okay, we got a
And
couple.
so Carol, back to you, and you got hands.
All right, we got a couple questions. First Carolyn and then Annie. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Yeah, so it's not so much a question, it's just kind of to talk about what
Yeah,
happened. AD 15. AD 15, we were very organized, and we had slate cards, and we were sending them out and handing them out. And so we had our table all set up, and at 10:15, the door still hadn't been opened yet. And we still saw on the website at 10:15 and 10:20 that January 8th was a designated day for voting, in-person voting for AD 15. This is 10:20 and it still wasn't open. And calls were our folks, Joe Summers from the Contra Costa Labor Council, other folks, Amy Heinscheich, they were calling the convener, calling people they knew at the party, what's going on. Oh, I guess we didn't let you know, sorry. And then at about 10:30, they changed the website to Saturday the 22nd, which was the wrong day. Should have been Sunday the 22nd. And then on Sunday the 22nd, all of a sudden the other slate happens to be there in full force, handing out their slate cards. So it was all kind of pretty, it felt very uncomfortable. And, and from what I understand, though, is that the person who was supposed to be the convener had a serious family issue. So we'll go there with that. But the party was definitely unorganized and not informing people. If they needed to make a change, they needed to make a change earlier. And it was interesting that no one from the other slate showed up at all on January 8th. No one at all. We were the only ones there. So somehow word got out to them, but it didn't get out to us. So anyway, but that's me. That's my QAnon report. Bye.
Okay, Annie, what would you like to say?
Sure. Yeah, no, this is coming from someone who did not run as an ADEM, but ended up co-convening one of the ADEM elections and also helped run 2 other ADEM elections. I think that in many ways, this was structurally more inclusive than previous cycles. And I say that because, right, we had mail-in voting this time. We haven't previously, except for the utter mess that was the, I guess, it was 2021, technically early 2021 elections. And structurally, that does let more people vote, right? We let people go to the polling place that wasn't their designated polling place if they couldn't make it in time to theirs. And so structurally, I do think that many things are heading in a correct, more inclusive direction, but they're going very slowly. Nevertheless, right, there are some structural and kind of systemic problems that do still need to be fixed. Namely, as someone who was on the other side of the counter and helping administer these elections, some people got PIN numbers that were incoherent and did not match the assembly district that they lived in, and so that was a problem. And people, either the party had to get called or people had to manually get done different PINs, and that wasn't very fun. Some people did not respect the you don't get to campaign 100 feet from the door. I think that more enforcement needs to happen there. And so all that to say, I am generally happy with the way in which the things are going, but all of these things need to get raised or they're going to keep happening. And so we really do need to, right, intentionally push for this change between now and the next set of ADEM elections come 2025. And last thing, I, for various reasons, do know what happened in the 15th. The person who was supposed to run and convene did have a serious family issue, and that contributed to part of the utter chaos there.
Okay, thank you, Annie. Gordon, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, yes, I did or do. And I ran on ADEM on 8016. I did not get in. A lot of us were relatively unknown. And I'd been staying away from the Democratic Party for years, because of complete non-performance. However, a nice gal named Addie Olvera recruited me to run for the county, a convention delegate for the county party, and I got in that way. One thing I haven't mentioned to anybody is I gave a brief pitch at the county Dem organization, and I said, I am a Democrat in the spirit of FDR, Truman, JFK, non-military LBJ. I do not believe in neoliberalism. I believe in the New Deal. And I think that helped get me votes to go in there. Otherwise, I would have been a complete unknown with them too. Yield.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think more people are waking up to the ideas of the Green New Deal, especially as presented by a current senator. Okay, would anybody else like to comment? Nelson, Dan Kolb, Kate, people that were involved with this at all?
Sure, I'll jump in. Hey, everybody, Nelson Tam and 8018's The People Slate, and it's great to be here. And, this was not going to be possible without our revolution having our back at every step of the way, making this a true party event by just making this process so incredibly fun. I think, the greatest blessing in 8018 was that everyone had a respective talent in our slate, right? We have electeds, we have longtime grassroots organizers, we have graphic artists, we have performance artists, we have everyone that just came together. If you were on our team, you would have you would have been inundated with 30 Slack messages per day because it was it was that active with us. Pooling resources, drawing people in. What we were just incredibly shocked by was that, just by a random poll, 30% of the people that we got registered never received ballots. And this happened across the board. And what we saw in that incredibly competitive districts such as the 8050s in central Los Angeles and throughout LA, Riverside, and Orange County, the same thing transpired, right? It was like 30%, 25% through random polling. People just didn't get it. So we were scrambling because we were so in it to win it that we found out that the San Francisco Democratic Central Committee, they were having office hours every weekend because they were experiencing the similar situations, people just not getting ballots, and that they actually, if you, provided proof with your PIN and everything, they would actually give you a ballot to turn in. So we actually tried to, we were so motivated, we tried to get people into 541 Castro Street in San Francisco to vote. And word got out, and party chair shut that down. So we were really shocked about that, trying to, just get fairer access to the election. But it was incredible time, and what we need to seize on right now is that we are organizing wide, through the various channels, so that we come prepared for this and next convention. So thank you everybody for this immense help. All right.
Thank you, Nelson. Okay, we have one more question, and then we're going to move on. We have two more things to cover. We want to hear from Igor regarding solar updates, and Susanna, we're saving till last, who's going to talk about hanging out with Bernie last night. Anyway, okay, Sudia. We can't hear you.
You're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, okay. Just very briefly, I mean, you guys probably know this, but trying to vote by mail was extremely difficult. I mean, I don't know if, I mean, I feel like it took me an hour to look on the website to figure out, and you had to pick numbers and put in dots. I don't remember it all, but it was extremely difficult, and I would imagine that some people just gave up. We were persistent, but it took two of us poring over that ballot for a long time, and cross-referencing on the website and everything to figure out how to actually vote. So for next time, since you guys are in power now, I hope you make the online or the mail-in balloting easier next time. Thank you.
I'd like to remark on what Craig just said. Amar Shergill had a number of people that were definitely going to vote for him, and they had language problems. They're US citizens, they're registered to vote, and they had problems doing it and weren't able to complete it. So they're part of the whole thing. We need to have a thing that's sensitive to people that don't speak English so they can vote too. We want everybody to be able to vote. Okay, moving on, folks. We're very happy to have longtime OREB member and local big deal activist in everything, Igor Tragub. Igor, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's great to be here with all of you, and I am indeed honored to follow up on all of these great speakers to give you a quick update on distributed solar and storage. So just to recap, and thank you for all of your advocacy and help with the net energy metering quagmire last year. The good news is that we were, thanks to all of your help, stopped PG&E and the California Public Utilities Commission, which unfortunately has captured them, to impose a $57 a month solar tax. So we did beat back the solar tax, but unfortunately, we were not able to get changes in the rules that, like, the rules did pass, and unfortunately they do make the process of going solar more costly if the application happens after April 14th, particularly for working class and middle class families. So if you know anyone or who wants to go solar, or are thinking about going solar yourself, now would be a great time to apply. By April 14th is when the application needs to be submitted. And then you have 3 more years to get the system installed. So please spread the word. What I wanted to talk to you about, though, is we have a campaign happening locally and statewide right now. The only way now that we're going to be able to keep solar affordable for working class and middle class folks in particular is to lower the soft costs of going solar. And soft costs are costs unrelated to the system itself. The largest contributor to that is permitting. So you may have heard situations in your local communities where someone applies to get a solar system on their roof or a battery, and they go through a real rigmarole to get permitted by their city or county. Sometimes it can take months. I have heard cases where it has taken over a year, and that is just ridiculous. So we have a tool that was, we talk about government doing things in the public interest, and that is sometimes aspirational. But in this case, the National Renewable Energy Lab, under the auspices of the Department of Energy, my former employer, developed a tool that is free for jurisdictions to adopt and allows folks to instantaneously get their
We just lost
You're
you.
froze. Igor, you're frozen.
I think the thing to do when you're frozen is to re-sign in. Is that correct?
Or turn off your video.
Turn off the
Turn
video.
off your
please.
video.
Yes. Please
Sorry.
kill your video and repeat what
yeah.
you said.
Back.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Apologies. Yep. So I don't know at what point you lost Lori or I lost myself, but I was just saying that there is a tool developed by under the auspices of the federal government. So it is in the public interest. It's free for local jurisdictions to adopt, and it would allow for instantaneous permitting for rooftop solar and storage. Now, thanks to the support of Our Revolution East Bay, last year a bill passed, SB 379, that actually requires cities and counties with a population over 50,000 to adopt either solar app, which is free for jurisdictions to adopt, or spend millions of dollars adopting their own homegrown system. But regardless, by September, they have to adopt something that would allow for instantaneous permitting. So in the chat, I put several ways that you can get involved. And the link to the Google Doc takes you to an activist toolkit, and you can see local jurisdictions that could use your help to contact their elected members so that they can contact their staff to get them to get on this so that they can be in compliance with state law. Also, by May 1st, there is a grant deadline. It's a non-competitive grant through the State Energy Commission, which gives local jurisdictions funding. Even though this is free to adopt, this is funding to train staff, to do IT implementation, and whatever else needs to happen to allow for instantaneous solar once someone applies for a permit. I want to recognize, I think they're still on this call. We have Council Member Kate Harrison in Berkeley and Council Member Dan Kalb in Oakland, and both of them have been instrumental in getting Berkeley and Oakland to get with the program. And after a little bit of back and forth at the state level. It sounds like both of them are on their way to making the grant deadline and then working to adopt this tool. Unfortunately, here in the Bay Area, we do have a lot of leaders. Pleasant Hill was actually one of the first cities in the nation to adopt SolarApp, but we unfortunately also have a lot of laggards, jurisdictions that we just have not heard from. And they also include the county. So unincorporated Alameda County and Contra Costa County are not in compliance or on their way to not be in compliance with the law after September, unless we change that. And we have a lot of activists here on this call who either reside in those jurisdictions or know folks who do. So please take a look at the activist toolkit. And it's super easy. You can use the steps below, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, or Kaylee. Kaylee is our organizer with the Solar Rights Alliance. By the way, the Solar Rights Alliance is an amazing place to get information about how to continue being advocates for solar at the state level. So there are monthly calls. There's one tomorrow, actually. And you can sign up to get information on that website. Lastly, I will put information in the chat as soon as I find it. But in my capacity as chair of the California Dem Party Environmental Caucus, I just wanted to invite you to join or renew the caucus. You do not have to be a party delegate. You just need to be a registered Democrat or expressing preference for Democratic registration if you're unable to register. I will put in the link. I will put the link in the chat rather. We are excited to hold our next meeting on the sidelines of the convention in May. And you can also get on our very active listserv. And I look forward to being back before you next month to talk about some of the climate bills that we will be working on. And final thing, one of the bills I'll be talking about next month, we are sponsoring a bill to hold PG&E accountable and actually fining them when it's PG&E and the other utilities that are responsible for delays in permitting rooftop solar and battery storage. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much for being on the call and all that you do.
Okay, we have two more things, actually. We're going to hear about the book reading, and then what we always do the last few minutes, we want anybody who would like to make an announcement or just say, hi, I'm so-and-so, or whatever. It's kind of open mic time for a few minutes. So we're going to go to the co-chair of our Revolution East Bay, Susanna Williams, to hear about last night.
Thank you, Carol. So we had a blast. Carol, Sherry, and I road trip to San Jose to attend the Bernie Sanders and his collaborator on this book project, John Nichols, speak. And so there was a whole bunch of other people that we ran into there. Richard Lee was there. Vitska was there. Ida. Gosh, Carolyn Bowden. I can't believe we didn't see you, Carolyn.
Yeah,
So,
where were you,
yeah, it
Alfred?
was a great evening. Oh, Alfred, you were there? God,
no.
How many people did we not see? Oh. Anyway, so it was held at the historic California Theater, which is a gorgeous venue. It's the old Fox Theater that they spent a boatload of money and time renovating right in downtown San Jose. And we got there early, so we got awesome seats. We were right in the middle. We sprung for the good tickets so that we'd get good seats. And Bernie and John Nichols were awesome. I can't remember the name of the woman that was the moderator, but she's well known in the political space, political commentary space. She was excellent as well. Some of us were talked about it. Bernie's learned a lot on the campaign trail. The title of his book is, Sherry's holding it up. It's okay to be angry about capitalism. It was an excellent talk. Great questions that were submitted. And Sherry and I were commenting that Bernie has really learned a lot on the campaign trail. He's much smoother, and a lot of his criticism in the early days was he came off as an old angry white man. And he still has all that passion, he still has that bluntness, he still has that fire, but it comes across a little smoother. So I think if something occurs down the road, this will be a different tenor to a campaign. So we had a great time. And Bernie, at the end, the last question asked of him was yes or no. And we all know what that was referring to. He answered, it depends. And he said, if Biden runs, no, I will not run. But if Biden doesn't run, then kind of like, left there. Yes. So, so that's kind of where that stands. We ended up going across, connecting with a few other people. We ended up going across the street to a restaurant where we ended up hanging out with Ash Kalra, Jane Kim, and a bunch of their staffers. So it was a great evening. It was awesome to see Bernie. Completely different crowd. I expected to see more activists there. And I think a lot of this crowd, it's about 1,100 people in the capacity. It was sold out. I think this crowd was a lot of his heavy hitter donors, most likely. So it was nowhere near as raucous as our typical Bernie event, shall we say. Although it's a pretty dignified venue. But yeah, so I'm so glad we all went. It was great to reconnect with a few people. It was great to hear Bernie again, and he kind of, inspires you. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents. I don't know if Sherry, Carol, anybody else who's here has anything else to add. But it was well worth the price of admission.
There was a lot of young people, which, he's always had a lot of young people, but it was kind of nice to see that the room was really full of a lot of young people. And we met students when we were in line waiting to get in, that are just as enthusiastic about him as we were in 2016. So I thought that was a really, really nice thing to see all these people. And I learned a lot, didn't you? I mean, I followed Bernie forever, and I still learn things.
I'm gonna post some experts on my social media, so if y'all follow me, from the book, because there were some really key points that you brought up. There were a few things that he brought up that I wasn't aware of. So just some, kind of things that we should all be aware with regards to capitalism, who controls the money in this country, a few other things like that. We also ended up meeting John Nichols, his collaborator on this project, who is a very well-known progressive journalist. We ended up trying to figure out where this theater was. I think it was his daughter or his niece, but we ended up meeting her, and then she remembered us when we were standing in line and had him with her. And they came over and were chitty-chatting with us. So that was kind of, just a little fun, weird thing to happen, because we were serious early birds. I think we were like 10th in line or something. So
yeah, I'd like to add on, a lot of the people, we talked to a number of the people in line around us, young people, and they were all Bernie fans. None of them had ever been to rallies or anything, and they were so excited. And the whole thing felt to me, he knows all us crazy radicals support him. I think he's doing it, finding a way to reach out to people that didn't get who he is. I think he's reaching out to people and he's reaching them. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah. Although it was no holds.
Starbucks and Amazon people.
Yeah. He basically said that we have more in common than people think. That even the most conservative people, the Trumpers, especially rural America, have a lot in common with the progressives, that we're not being heard, that we don't feel powerful, that we are, left out of the neoliberal politics. And as much as we call ourselves Democrats, and we talked about the A-Dems, basically we feel, and he feels, that it's not a Democratic Republican thing. It is basically the people in power and the people who have no power, which I think resonates.
And Republicans that vote or don't vote in West Virginia have a lot in common with younger, especially younger people who have no health insurance, who need health care, who have huge educational costs. Everybody wants their families to be healthy. Everybody wants an education. Everybody wants a safe place to live and be able to afford to actually have a life. And that's something that we all have in common, no matter what political party you may be through. So.
Okay, it's open mic time. Would anybody like to make an announcement? I see that Cordell has put something in the chat. Would you like to announce it, Cordell, or I could read it or whatever?
Oh, sure. I can do the
Okay.
first verbal announcement, then you can read the second one. So here it is.
I just saw one.
Okay, so the first announcement is our Revolution East Bay is invited to have breakfast with Congressman Garamendi on March 15th, which is next Wednesday at Riggers Law in Richmond, and it's only $20 a person. I've not seen what the breakfast looks like, but I know it might be some waffles or mimosas. And then that's one verbal announcement, and I will let Carol read the next one.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, so our Revolution East Bay is invited to the Point Richmond Business Association luncheon on March 29th from 11:30 to 1 at the Hotel Mac. Okay, that's also $20 per person. And the guest speaker is our endorsed mayor for Richmond, Eduardo Martinez. So that might be something people would like to go to also. Okay, I see some hands up. Myra.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I just wanted to say hi, Mayra Alvarado. I'm a 5th grade teacher out here in Oakland, resident of District 7 in East Oakland. I just wanted to bring something to everyone's attention. I don't know if people or folks are aware. I think it's especially important because our Revolution East Bay endorsed Mike Hutchinson, that folks know this information, especially because I'm a teacher. I work with kids who look like me, who are English learners like me. But anyway, he has just been really disappointing in proposing mergers, proposing site cuts in a time where we need people to be at our sites more than ever, and putting it forward as in the name of supposed teacher raises. It's just the same old that we've seen with the district, saying that they're going to cut classified employees, making the least amount out of everybody in the name of supposed teacher raises. It never happens. It's just really disappointing to see that from Director Hutchinson. He had a couple of Facebook Lives where he went on and just dismissed community comments, saying that it's all coming from OEA leadership, which is not. It is just very concerning. And because he is an our Revolution East Bay endorsed candidate, I think that it's really important that folks go out there and let him know, and ask him really the tough questions, because he's just repeating a lot of the district talking points. So anyway, thank you for the time and for the opportunity to share this information.
Okay, thank you. We don't discuss any of these things once people make the announcements, just allowing free speech. Okay, Susanna.
Yeah, I put something in chat since we were talking about delegates and all that fun stuff. Adam Elvera, who is district director for the Contra Costa Central Committee for her region, which is 3 maybe? I can't remember, maybe 4. I don't know. Can't keep those things straight. No, I'm in 3. Whatever. Anyway, she put together it's geared to new delegates, but honestly, anybody can come. A delegate training. So it's kind of like Delegate 101 on, what to expect, things to watch out for, how to save money, and they can ask, whatever questions. So there's 4 of us who are speaking at that. I think most of us are like our Rev people, Amy Skolnick, Marisol Rubio, myself, and gosh, I put the flyer in there. I already forgot the other person. Who else is doing this? But it's going to be via Zoom, and the details are on the flyer. And anybody is welcome. Oh, Amy Slovak. is the other person, and she comes to our meetings often. So yes, so it'll be an opportunity to get some training, ask some questions, because the convention is coming up the end of May. So that's it.
Okay, Igor.
Yeah, unrelated to solar, but I wanted to make you aware of a letter that the Alameda County Democratic Party and Sierra Club recently signed on to. It's in the chat. It is a request to Oakland leadership to reallocate 3% of the police budget to things that avert traffic violence. There were, I think, something like 27 unnecessary deaths last year, including a number of hit and runs on the streets of Oakland. And so there's a letter, and there's also a petition that you can sign in your individual capacity. And of course, would love to for REV East Bay to consider signing on to the letter as well. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, Igor. You know, normally I save the chat and I don't seem to see the button for it today. Who else can see the button? And could they save it, Sherry, or?
I'll save the chat.
Okay, all right. Okay, anything else? Or are we complete?
We're good. And
Cynthia.
right on time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would like to end with a song, and I'll give you a choice. We can either have Deportee about farm workers. We can have Bread and
I'm going to
Roses.
stop the recording.
We can have
Lydia,
the times they
Lydia.
are changing.
Lydia, we're stopping the recording.
That's
at
okay.
Another time.
We can have the times are
Okay,
changing.
thank you, everybody.
Okay, so I'll